Welcome to our channel on astrology and spiritual matters. After a gap of some time, we are again coming out with a video in English. This time, it is with regard to the Saturn's transit to Aquarius. In one of my earlier videos, I had indicated that a lot of transit predictions are being seen in the internet, which is actually of no significance. I'm very sorry to say this, but that's a fact. Of late, what I have been observing is that for every transit, people are putting one video, maybe from some other angle, maybe for more viewers for their channel. But I have already indicated in one of my episodes that what matters in transit is only of the transit of major planets, which during transit may be in a particular zodiacal sign for at least some reasonable period of time. If we take into consideration that principle, the two planets whose transits, or only those two planets, are worthy of consideration for transit predictions. Why I say? Because all the 5 planets and the luminaries, Sun and Moon, are being transit in the 12 zodiacal signs during a particular year. We also take into consideration the dragon's head and dragon's tail, which is known as Rahu and Ketu, though it's shadow planets whose anti-clockwise movements are also being taken into consideration. From that angle, we can also say that Rahu and Ketu's transit can also be taken into consideration, because these two shadow planets also spend considerable time in a particular zodiacal sign, say more than 1.5 years or around 1.5 years. So these are the 3 planets, Jupiter, Saturn and Rahu, whose transit predictions we need to take into consideration while making transit predictions. The rest of the planets, definitely they are in transit, but which is of no significance or of lesser significance as far as a person is concerned. So, maybe it's futile to attempt the transit prediction in respect of other planets. Now I'm here to talk to you over the transit prediction for the Saturn, which is going to enter to the house of Aquarius on January 17th of 2023. Saturn will be there in this zodiacal sign between January 17, 2023 to March 2025. That means almost 2.25 years. Normally, all of us know that transit Saturn will be spending 2.5 years in a particular zodiacal sign on an average. It may be lesser or more depending upon its retrograde and its fast forward motion. So almost more than 2 years, transit Saturn will be in Aquarius. So I'm going to discuss with you only the general characteristics and the general predictions for the zodiacal signs for which this transit matters. I'm not going to talk zodiacal signs one by one or in seriatim, because it's not of much significance. Those who are not having much of malefic influence of this Saturn, they need not consider about this transit prediction. Whatever good fortune or happens in their life, they can welcome it, and we need not bother much about that. I'm only to caution you about those zodiacal signs in whose for those zodiacal signs who will be affected badly by the transit of Saturn. One more factor or one more fact which we need to keep in the back of our mind is that many people don't know the difference between transit Saturn and Saturn main and sub periods. I had indicated many times, transit Saturn happens for everybody in the universe because it's the present Saturn, the moment of the Saturn planet as on the date, which is called transit Saturn, which affects the whole zodiacal signs. Whereas the Saturn superior and main period is depending upon the star in which a person is born, and only people who are born in certain stars will have Saturn and Dasa or subperiod, main period or subperiod, whose predictions are different. It depends upon the planetary position of a person at the time of birth, the star in which he is born. Some people may not have even this Saturn Dasa at all. Saturn main period may not come in their life at all. Saturn subperiod may come, but Saturn main period may not come at all. So such people need not bother about it at all. But many of the people may get Saturn main period, so they should be bothered depending upon the Saturn's placement in the zodiacal sign or in their birth chart. So that is not the matter of discussion now. Our discussion is only about transit Saturn. Why I am telling? Because you need to make a difference between Saturn main and sub period and transit Saturn. We are not here going to talk about transit Saturn. One important feature for this present transit Saturn is that it is in Mola Trigona sign. Saturn has got two houses of its own, which are Capricorn and Aquarius. But even among these two, Saturn is more comfortable to stay in Aquarius. That means Saturn will be more happy in this Aquarius side, which will have more power in the Aquarius side. So that is a redeeming feature for all of us concerned. Why? Because when a person is very happy, he may disturb less others, which we all know. When a person is highly disturbed, he may make others' life miserable. Same thing applies for this Saturn planet also. Since Saturn is very happy during this transit, that is around 2.25 years, very less or very insignificant malefic effects can be expected, since Saturn is in the Mola Trigona sign. That's the first point which I would like to make here. Another point which I would like to tell you is that there is no combination of Jupiter or Mars. There is no combination of Jupiter with this transit Saturn during the entire year of 2023. There is a small period, March, April next year, March, April 2024, not even 2023, 2024, when Saturn will be coming into close connection with the Mars. That is one, we used to say that whenever Saturn and Mars comes together, there could be very high disasters. When Saturn and Mars came together in Aquarius, and when the Jupiter was also in fall, we had the worst period in our life in the last century, you would say, by the COVID pandemic. But no such combinations is now there. Jupiter is in very high power position because it's in Pisces. Jupiter is very strong, so Jupiter, the Guru, will not allow for any untoward things to happen in the universe. Secondly, this Saturn and Mars comes into contact only for a very brief period. That time, what happens is that Mars is not in full power because it is in Aquarius, so Mars is not in full power. Mars is in full power in only Capricorn, and Saturn is in power also. So we can ignore the combination of these two planets. Coming back to the auspicious and inauspicious results of Saturn, I would just make a general statement, which everybody, or all students of astrology or all readers of astrology know. But again, I want to reiterate this point for your information. That is, Saturn's transit in the house of 3, 6, 9, and 11. 3, 6, 9, and 11. That is 1/3 of the zodiacal signs. There are 4 zodiacal signs, 3, 6, 9, and 11. These 4 zodiacal signs will do good for the people concerned. So, next question comes, from where we are considering these 3, 6, 9, and 11? This is normally counted from the moon lagna or from the Rashi or where the moon is placed. So if the moon is in your chart, if the moon is in actually Sagittarius, the Saturn is transiting through 6. If the moon is in Virgo, Saturn is transiting through 6. Similarly, if your moon is placed in Gemini, Saturn is moving through 9th. And if the moon is in Aries, Saturn is transiting through 11th. So these houses, the honor of these houses, or where the moon is placed in these 4 houses, transit Saturn may not disturb you at all, irrespective of its placement and irrespective of your time or the Sabukti period. So Saturn transit may not disturb you. Then what is bad for us? Transit Saturn is bad for people when the transit Saturn travels through 4th, 5th, 7th and 10th. 4th, 5th, 7th and 10th, it is bad. What is really bad? So we have told only about 4 houses, 3, 6, 9 and 11. Now I am talking about 4, 5, 7 and 10. These 4, 5, 7 and 10, when counted from the moon, these people also may have problems in their life by the transit Saturn. What type of bad effects it will have, we will see. But before that, I would also want to caution people from whose moon the Saturn will be transiting to 12th, 1st, 2nd and 8th. When we say 12th, 1st and 2nd, we used to say Sade Sadi. The dreaded Sade Sadi, the 7 of Saturn, which will make people's life miserable. Many a fall, many a tragedy in many people's life we have witnessed during the 7 of Saturn. I'm not a person to scare people by the transit Saturn, but if your Dasabhukti period, if your main period in your birth chart is also bad, and if the 7 of Saturn is also operating, it will be very difficult for the person to face these challenges. So in that case, when the Saturn is transiting through 1st, 2nd and 12th, such people will have very bad time. And one more zodiacal signs I would like to include in this very bad zodiacal signs, which is 8th house. How the Saturn will be in 8th house? People who are born in Cancer Lagna or Cancer, not Lagna. When I say Lagna, it is moon's placement here, please remember. So when somebody's moon is in Cancer, their Saturn will be placed in 8th house from Cancer Lagna, and which is also very bad because 8th house is considered as Ashtama Shani, we used to say in Sanskrit. 8th house Saturn is very bad. But all said and done, the first point which I have told you, that was the first point which I made, that Saturn is in Mula Trigona sign during this transit. The Saturn being in Aquarius, so it may do lesser damage. Even all those things which I have told, the 7 of Saturn, the Ashtama Shani, the 4, 5, 7 and 10, all these effects will be drastically reduced. All these ill effects will be drastically reduced because of the transit Saturn being in Aquarius. So, people who are having 7 of Saturn during the current transit, that is, when the Saturn is in Capricorn and when it is moving to Aquarius, these two people will have very lesser 7 of Saturn ill effects because their moon is placed in Saturn's house and Saturn will not do damage to its own house. So these two 7 of Saturn people will have a sigh of relief even though they are undergoing 7 of Saturn. Then there are exceptions for this thing. That is what now I have mentioned. People who are born in Capricorn, Aquarius, people who are born in Libra, they may also have lesser effect, irrespective of the placement. Now, what will be the placement of this Saturn for people who are born in Libra moon sign? People who are born in Libra moon sign, they will have this Saturn in 5th house. 5th house is a house of children. 5th house is a house of issues. So, normally people are bothered when Saturn transits 5th house. They may have problem for their children, sorrow from children, ill will towards children, or strained relationship with children. All those things are the results when Saturn transits through 5th house. But however, since Libra is a house where Saturn is exalted, so for such people also, transit Saturn may not do much damage when it transits through 5th house. Then it is, I have already told, Sagittarius, Capricorn and Aquarius. One more zodiacal sign is Pisces. People whose moon is placed in Pisces will also have lesser effect because it is in 12th house. It is 7.5 Saturn's beginning, but since Saturn is in Mula Trikona, they may also have a sigh of relief. So these are, in a nutshell, what I need to say, that the present transit of Saturn is not so dreadful as people talk about. The Saturn being in Mula Trikona, especially the exceptions which I have told for the zodiacal signs of Libra, Capricorn, Aquarius, Sagittarius, Pisces, all these people also will have lesser effect. Generally, they will have very lesser malefic influence of the Saturn during the present Saturn, which is a sigh of relief for people. However, I would very seriously advise people who are born in Aquarius Lagna as well as Cancer Lagna. These two people have to take into consideration their health very seriously, because one is Ashtama Shani and the other is Janma Shani. One is 7.5 Saturn and one is Ashtama Shani. So these two people will have to take care of their health position very seriously. They should do proper medical checkups. If people who are suffering from chronic ailments, to be very careful, and they should also do pariharas for Saturn. And what are the pariharas for Saturn for this transit period? How we can overcome the ill effects, we would explain in our next video. We will be explaining the other aspects, how to come out of this, what are the remedies to be done for the transit Saturn. Thank you.